Sister Nadia,
for them.
this is a little question.
Yes, sir.
What's the political affiliation of the founders of ADOS? What party do they belong to? A party?
As far as whether they're Democrats or
Republican? Yeah.
that, I honestly, I don't know, but I do know that they have come out against the Democrats, mainly presenting the, and that's the thing about, this misinformation is like they use a certain grain of truth, but the way that they embellish it almost makes it not sensical. So yes, we've had a lot of problems with the Democratic Party, but then we've also had a lot of problems with the Republican Party. And during this whole last 4 years, and this whole push on, we want reparations, we want reparations. Prior to 2016, there was hardly any talk in the general Black population about reparations. Now, all of a sudden, people were basing their political choices on who, quote unquote, supported reparations. And this would somehow influence who they chose. And while they were pushing that for the Democrats, no one ever asked Trump if he supported reparations. No one was going around asking Republicans if they supported reparations, because the agenda wasn't about reparations. What it was about was to cause a certain disinterest within the Black population in the voting process, in the governmental process. And so a lot of people accepted that. They used that as a justification for them to really not do the hard work. And it's like, yeah, Biden isn't the greatest, we ain't going to, he isn't. But when you compare him to Trump, there is no comparison. There really is no choice. And people are not willing to have that discussion. So they'll use the Democrats, we ain't gonna get reparations from them. Or they didn't come up with the contract with Black America, or whatever it is that Ice Cube is pushing. And it was like, where did you come from all of a sudden as a person who can establish a contract, to understand what the needs are for Black America, to even go and have a discussion with somebody who half the time isn't connected to reality anyway. Trump as half the time is not even, you don't even know what dimension he's operating in. And you actually think you're going to have a legitimate contract with this person, that we should risk another 4 years of a president who pushes the militarization of the police, who supports the police killing innocent Black people simply because they are the police. And it's like, you're willing to discount all of that because, there really isn't, because you're not really having a discussion about reparations.
That's right. That's right.
Now, I understand that Yvette Carnell has been seen publicly wearing a Vote for Trump, Make America Great Again hat.
That's right.
I understand that.
I missed those.
Huh?
No, it's on YouTube.
I said I missed those.
Yeah. And I understand
Lord.
that the way in which they're encouraging Black people to handle the vote is either vote for Trump or don't vote.
Right. Exactly.
So clearly, they are supporting the Republican agenda and the Republican Party. And I'll just say this. If Trump is in office 4 more years, there are going to be a lot more dead Black people. We are doing most of this dying, and over 220,000 COVID-19 deaths, Black and brown. And there's going to be many more, because if this sucker would not do anything to stop this virus when he could have, And I pointed out on my show on Black Reconstruction that there are countries around the world that have had no deaths or hardly any. Taiwan, 5 deaths. Cuba, 120. Vietnam, 7 or 8. And they share a border with Wuhan. The recent study done by a major medical association in this country showed there shouldn't be any more than 1,500 to 2,000 deaths in this whole country. This sucker has committed what I call a viral side. That means genocide by virus, not because the virus caused it, but because of the way in which it's been handled, which has not been handled at all. Not to mention his support of the white supremacist movement in this country, calling them heroes, calling out the Proud Boys, calling out the Boogaloo Boys. You know what I mean? Stand up and be ready. And they've said what that means for them is they'll do whatever they're told. And that includes, some of them have been found, at least armed people at voting polls. You know what I mean? So to suggest that Trump is somebody you can work with is ridiculous. And in fact, it is not a question of whether we like any candidate. Lincoln, who emancipated blacks, thought blacks were inferior, wanted to ship us out of the country. You know what I mean? Did blacks turn down emancipation because of that? And do you think that you can pressure Trump when in fact you've got a wind at your back, a movement going on? Black Lives Matter and others, you can pressure Biden. You can pressure him. Lyndon Johnson. I was a leader in the Black Freedom Movement in the 60s. Johnson was a racist, but he caved in on voter rights. He caved in on civil rights. He caved in on the war on poverty. He caved in on model cities programs. He caved in. So this politics ain't no love affair. Politics about power. And me, electoral politics is secondary. The streets is primary. You got action in the streets. So all this confusion going around, I think it's designed to do whatever you can to neutralize black votes. What I wanted to do was just wrap up on a few things, Sister Nadia and then Brother Winbush. One is
before Baba, before we move on, I just want to make a point about this election. 4 more years of Trump is referendum on the alt-right, on white supremacy. And that is dangerous. And it ties into how much of history we don't know. It's like most Black people are walking around and they think about white supremacists or people who just call you the N-word, or it's just a matter of like white people being not nice to you. That is not what these alt-right KKK offspring are about. That KKK that was established in December 24th, 1865, like they're a newborn baby Jesus, was slaughtering Black people.
Right.
The atrocities of like the crimes that were committed to Black bodies, where they were barbecued and pieces were pulled off and eaten. That's the history of the alt-right. That's the history that Donald Trump doesn't find a problem with. And we need to understand, it's like, that's dangerous. It's like, yeah, Biden is not the greatest. However, we do have the wind at our back. We have social media. We have public access where we can hold his feet to the fire. We can hold him accountable. You're not going to have that with Trump.
Right. That's right. You know, let me just say this real quick, Bob, and Nadia. You know, over here in Maryland, where I am, about 4 days ago, this white boy who is supporting Trump, of course, went around to everyone in Frederick, Maryland, who had a Biden-Harris sign in their yard, put a letter under their door or attached it to their mailbox saying, "We are going to assassinate Harris and Biden, and since you have a sign in your yard, we're coming after you as well." So these are very serious. I think, and I've told people, I think this is probably one of the most dangerous times in American history other than the outbreak of the American Civil War. There were dangerous times during the civil rights movement. There's been dangerous times, but this is a very dangerous time because we have a guy in office right now who has opened the box, if you please, of saying it is fine to be racist. All of these presidents have had some form of racism. With Kenneth O'Reilly's book, what's the name of that book? Nixon's Piano, says that
Nixon's Piano.
Yeah, every president up until Dwight D. Eisenhower made a publicly racist statement. And that includes Roosevelt, all of these people that we say, well, they were great towards black people. And Johnson, all he did was use the N-word behind closed doors and in some cases in front of folk. So I think what we got to realize that we're in a very dangerous time, and white people are preparing for an American Civil War. ADOS is just one of the vehicles that it is using for some of that stuff. And unfortunately, many of our so-called celebrities and people like that who have just not been, they're just not up to snuff intellectually.
Yeah, and I think we're going to wrap up on this one, and then we're going to open up for the audience. I agree with both of you, that this is white supremacy raw. And this is a repeat of something that's gone on before. And I think what we're seeing is something very close to the Hayes-Tilden compromise, because in a close election between Hayes and Tilden, it went to the House, and in exchange for Hayes, who had received a smaller amount of popular votes, he was elected president on two conditions. One, he would draw federal troops from the South so that the Klan could ride over blacks. Blacks had militias at that time. The show that I did before this on post-Reconstruction goes through that. They were armed, and these were Civil War veterans, and they were defending their families and Reconstruction legislatures. But once federal troops withdrew, then they started bulldozing at a maximum level. Black people call bulldozing burning you out, lynching you. And as Sister Nadia pointed out, cutting your body into pieces. So that was the first post-Reconstruction. The other thing that's often missed about that first post-Reconstruction is one of the conditions of the Southerners for Hayes being elected president was putting two Supreme Court justices, Southern Supreme Court justices, on the Supreme Court. And they wiped out civil rights law. They wiped out what was left. And what you've seen with Trump, where he's put on a rabid conservative, so that now there'll be a 6-9 majority on the Supreme Court. And this person has not testified to a single thing that she believes in, but she belongs to the praise worshipers, which is a right-wing sect within the Catholic Church. That's right. She will end Obamacare so that pre-existing conditions will be gone, so that people who are now suffering from something from COVID-19, that's a pre-existing condition. You will get a $200,000 medical bill, or you will not live. And so that's a part of it. And she will go after what's left of the voting rights law. And she will go after everything else. So if you sweep this election and sweep the Senate out, your first agenda is put pressure on Biden to expand the Supreme Court. Quit calling it packing. There's no rule in the Constitution that says the limit. And you need to put at least 4 on there. And they need to be hardliners, not these soft liners that the Democrats always put on there. So, I mean, that is one thing that needs to happen. We need to see that if you don't put Trump out of the White House and prepare him for the jailhouse, then what you're going to see is something you have never seen before. And here's the key point, and I want to end this on immigration. The right wing is in retreat. Whites in power are in retreat. Why? We are witnessing the decline of America and the fall of America. Europe has already fallen. And what are they falling and declining to? By the time that a majority of people in this country will be black, brown, red, and yellow, which means numerical stranglehold on power in this country, which has been based on whites, will be broken. It does not mean their power will be broken, but that is the first step to breaking the power. They're on retreat because they know that. They also know there's nothing they can do about it. Trump is in office talking about build the border and all the rest of that. The Latino is, first of all, outbirthing you. Number two, they're outnumbering you, along with us and Asian people. And you can't stop that. And in fact, you took half of Mexico. They are coming into places that you took from them. You understand? Like where I live, California. So the thing is, they are on the defensive because immigration cannot be stopped in terms of changing the face of this country. And what I want to say to the listeners of this program, quit training your children to serve this system. Train your children to get ready to change the system, and one in which Black, brown, red, and yellow and conscious whites will rule.
That's right.
Not the unconscious. As Malcolm said, we need to get into, Black Lives Matter's got this right, restructuring. And in this case, Malcolm said, America is as crooked as a pretzel. He said, if a pretzel could be straight, America wouldn't be crooked. So what we need to do is take something crooked and make it straight. That was King's conclusion at the end of his life. So that is really the challenge. So we need to understand that white power is in retreat. This anti-immigrant stuff cannot possibly work. And what we need to do is understand that it's really a question of what is our agenda going to be?